So recently, I was asked to go out and take a look at this building. Now, I've built a few houses, not necessarily myself. I've had some houses built. I've done a bunch of remodeling. Again, not myself, but I've had it done. I've flipped a bunch of houses, I guess you might say. And, this building is a fourplex, right? 2 upstairs, 2 downstairs. It was built probably mid to late 50s. The construction that was used on this thing is a block construction on the outside, but it actually has above grade flooring, right? So the bottom floor is wooden, and then even the second floor inside is a wooden floor. So it's not like a conventional building that you might see that has block on the outside that would have then, cement floor on the bottom and a cement floor on the top on the second story. This is not built that way. But the first floor landing, which is a raised landing because, of course, it's above grade, it's concrete. And then on the second floor landing for the stairs, it's also concrete. And the construction that they used was and the roof has an overhang, by the way, that sits over top of the second floor landing, creating shelter, as does the second floor landing create shelter for the first floor landing. And if you'll look at this thing, you'll see it has the metal pipes that go up, for to hold the roof up to the second floor. Now, if you notice when you watch this thing that the metal pipes don't go from the ground first landing up to the roof overhang. They actually go up, and then there's a metal frame that holds the cement landing in place, and then the second floor's support of that roof overhang comes off of that metal frame, so they're actually not connected. And when you look underneath the landing of the second floor, you can actually see it looks to be probably a 2-inch angle iron that was used to create this frame for this thing to sit in. Now, it is connected to the building, and it seems like it's fastened in such a way to where it could be sandwiched between blocks, but you can't really tell just because of the construction of the building. You can't really see the base of it. But there isn't or doesn't seem to be any metal support inside of that landing. It's just reinforced concrete sitting like as if there was a metal frame built, and then this was set inside the frame. And the metal frame is, of course, connected to the building in the lower landing. The reason I say there's no support in there is because I actually had an engineer come out and take a look at it just to find out his opinion on this thing, on this landing. And he said that, during that era that they probably didn't use it. It's actually, and it's only about 4 inches thick too. It's about 3.5 to 4 inches thick. It's not a really big landing up there. And he said that typically the way they did this was they would take that and actually lay it into the frame that they had built with steel. They'd lay it inside there, and that frame was then bolted to the building, which seems to be the case in this case. Now, the reason I was called out to take a look at this was there was an idea there that there may have been some fatigue on this thing because, and you'll see in the video, there's a failure on the outside of it, like where part of the rail would go into the cement. A big piece of the concrete actually popped off of there. And I guess there's tenants in the building, and one of the tenants, I guess, told somebody that it would almost hit him in the head. Whether that happened, who knows? I mean, it could have been because of where it landed. It obviously could have caused that. When I went over and looked at it, and the engineer followed me to look at it, we were both of the opinion that eventually that this concrete's probably going to fail at some point. It also has another failure point down on the bottom landing. Actually has a little failure point near, again, one of the steel supports. And the steel supports in this thing, they're rusted badly. I mean, they are rusted badly. It looks like they've probably been painted 50 times with paint on them and painted over rust and everything. They're really bad, and you'll see that as well. As a matter of fact, up on that landing, there's a metal railing system that uses steel. There's a metal rail, and then you'll see there's a thinner piece of like a steel plate, then a wider piece of steel plate for the safety, for the safety plating of the rail so that people can't fall through it, obviously. And that is actually where the wide one connects to the corner support is actually rusted to where it's just hanging there, and it rusted off of that and the next support, so that just you can push it and it just wiggles off the top of there. And even the one above it has broken loose from the center support. Now it's still connected on the end, so it doesn't waver as bad as the one below it, but this is definitely a railing system that is screaming out for, hey, you got to do something right here. And it's rusting really bad. It's coming through the paint in many areas. It's really in bad shape. But even those things, even those things that we've just talked about, when you see the video, there was one shot that I took on the video when I was standing on the bottom first floor landing, and I look up at the bottom of the second floor landing. There's actually almost a hole forming, and what it is, if you look on the ground below it, you can actually see little particles of the concrete that are failing in that coming through that hole there. Now it's all painted and everything, or was painted. The paint's kind of peeling back in a few places. The building's in definitely need of some rescue here. But the fear here is, and by the tenant, when I talked to the tenants upstairs, and even the downstairs tenants, because the downstairs tenant is actually the one that said that this piece of cement almost hit them. And their fear is, of course, that there's going to be, the downstairs people feel like that this is going to fall on their head, and it's going to crush them as they come out their door. And then the upstairs tenant, their concern is they're going to step out the door one day and ride this down to the first floor. And because the engineer that went out and looked at it as a favor to me, he's a good friend of mine. The feeling there is there's no rebar reinforcement, so the potential there for the failure of the concrete to actually fall through to the floor, to the first floor is there. I mean, should it give way or crack or break open or something, it could fall straight through because there's nothing to hold the center part of it. It's just the frame is around the outside. There's nothing holding the center. So because there's nothing holding the center, it could collapse, right? And if you notice, there's like across the front, there's the two end poles, the corner poles, and there's two center poles that go up, and they support the roof and the little roof overhang on the second floor. And one of those poles is where this piece is broke off. If you look really closely on the pole, you can see that the concrete on that has a crack in it. And when you go up on top of the landing, if you look closely, you can see where there was a crack and somebody fixed the crack on the top of the landing. And that's really where we're coming from here. Now, in talking to this engineer, again, you're going to watch the video. But in talking to the engineer, it seems like that there's a couple of fixes here. There's one that's really expensive. I mean, the engineer says you could be talking, $25,000, $30,000 or more worth of expense to repair, and that would be to demo the whole thing, the roof overhang, the second floor landing, the staircase, everything, and go back and completely rebuild it out of current day steel and current day construction standards, which you have permit and everything else. There's another way to do this that this engineer suggested, and that is to build a structure underneath the second landing inside of the structure that's already there. And then you would basically, what you would do is it would attach to the second floor landing underneath it to support it, and it would have cross-membered support, right, like joist style support underneath it. And of course, he's got recommendations for for what materials that can be used and different things like that. But basically, that would be a lot less expensive to do it that way, and what it would do is it would add support to the concrete up there, so it wouldn't go any further, it wouldn't break or bust or anything like that. But even if it did have any failure, at least you don't have just a outside frame and the entire middle of that thing just collapsed, and whoever's standing on it is going to definitely have some serious health issues after that was done. Whoever's below it's probably not going to make it. So to the property owner, if this is seen by the property owner, to the property owner on this, my suggestion is twofold: either through the support construction, or or you don't do anything and make really sure you have your insurance paid up and you have a giant liability policy, because if this thing comes down, it's not going to be funny. It's going to hurt somebody.